I'm Sally Murdoch, and I'm going to be presenting our HDFS presentation for Group A. We're talking about relationship patterns. So within a relationship, there are many different patterns and behaviors that contribute to the flourishing or demise of a relationship. We can look in our own lives and relationships surrounding us to find patterns and behaviors we want to replicate or avoid. Okay, so some of these patterns are communication, individuality, love languages, teamwork, and stressors. How are we taught these patterns? There's many different relationships that we experience in our lives that can teach us things about how we're going to build relationships in the future. So the first one is the relationship of our parents. So the ways in which your parents interact plays a significant role in the ways in which you yourself will learn how to build and maintain relationships. Also looking at your friends, the actions of your friends carries oftentimes more influence over your development than even your own family, because these are people that you feel you're most like yourself alongside them. And then also your personal experience. So obviously personal interactions will also provide opportunity for learning. When you come face to face with a conflict, you're forced to make decisions that will impact the way you handle situations in the future. So about communication. There are 4 different modes of communication that we're going to be talking about. So there's body language, verbal communication, distance, and face-to-face. So body language is posture, gestures, eye movements, touch, and use of space. Verbal communication is the use of words, both written and spoken. And then distance is the pace of delivery of words and the time spent together. Face-to-face communication is communicating while visible to each other. So that's both in person and in virtual settings. Some examples of good and bad communication. Good would be like speaking to your partner when you are upset or feel neglected. A bad example would be shutting down and not talking to your partner when you're upset. Blaming and shaming them for your feelings. Allowing other people's opinions into relationships and arguments, or even bringing your kids or friends into the argument. Another good example would be taking a breather if a fight is escalating, or taking time to collect thoughts before speaking in the heat of the moment, or speaking to your partner with respect and using I statements instead of you statements. So putting the blame more on your own feelings rather than on the other people. So that's all I've got. Bye.
I'm Kate Shields. I am presenting on individuality in a relationship and the patterns having to do with individuality that I am going to either avoid or try to bring into my own future relationships. So, in a relationship, I think that it's very important that each individual retains their own identity and doesn't change who they are for the person. One thing that's important to me is growing with a person rather than changing for a person. And so I think some of the ways that a couple can maintain their individual identities while also leaning on each other and having a like a great relationship is by sharing of the household roles such as breadwinning, like who has the income, while also sharing the homemaking responsibilities and the child caring responsibilities. Another thing is each couple having shared and unshared interests. This can be hobbies that they both enjoy to do together, and other hobbies that they have loved to do that make them happy, that they respect each other for and continue to do because it's what makes them happy. Along with that, respect is a big thing in all aspects of a relationship, but especially in respecting each other's individual identity and who you are as a person. That also goes along with not having to change, but rather growing together, not changing. And this can also be seen in culture collaboration. Each person has their morals and values and the things that make them who they are and their different backgrounds that they come from. And if it's something that a couple is compromising on, both need to respect each other's cultures and backgrounds. So some examples, before you get into a relationship, a good thing is to look at your values and morals and what you like to do and notice what's compromisable and non-compromisable. Another thing, a bad thing would be to change your morals and values for the other, hide parts of your personality, and quit everything that makes you happy because your partner doesn't want you to do them. And one key thought is doing a couples contract, and that can sort out the negotiables and non-negotiables before entering into a relationship. Some of the real life examples of this in my life of how people, some role model relationships in my family uphold their individual identities is my parents. My both my parents have their own hobbies that they've both kept throughout their relationship, and they also have shared hobbies like they like to play pickleball together. They also split work equally through the house. My dad is the main source of income, but my mom um, has been a homemaker and also has at one point in her life also worked along with my dad. And it's always just been shared respect and compromise. At one point, my mom and my dad had different religions, and there was a compromise that my mom would raise us as Catholic, and my dad, we would live where my dad's family is from in Illinois. They both enjoy each other's individuality, and neither is forced to change to be with the other. One example that has some bad things that I would like to avoid are my dad's parents. They have been together for 50 years, but they're both very independent. And it's difficult now as they're getting older when they need to lean on each other more and they are going to be around each other more. And they have seen that they don't mesh as well. They don't have as many shared interests and their hobbies and they have similar morals and values, which is great, but they're both very independent and they don't have a respect for each other and who they are as much as my parents do. And then one other relationship where I don't want to fall into or copy those characteristics. She lost her individuality in her relationship. She had to stifle her personality in order to make her partner happy. She would not do things that would make her happy in order to please her partner. And there was a lack of compromise where one person was experiencing the burden of making the relationship work while the other wasn't. So, those are the things that I would like to avoid and take with me in my future relationships on the matter of individuality. Thank you.
I'm Will Kukler, and I'm going to talk about the stressors, negative and positives to dealing with stressors when they're in a relationship. When dealing with stress, you have to think about how you deal with stressors, whether it's inside the relationship or outside of the relationship, um, by yourself and how you deal with it yourself, or how you deal with it with your partner. If you're going to rely on each other or finding outside help, um, such as like a therapist or or even just a close friend. And also you and your partner's vulnerability, whether you're willing to be vulnerable in private, just one-on-one with each other, or if you are in public, and how one of those important parts about settling arguments is compromise. So some of the good practices to do while you have stressors and trying to deal with them is communicating openly. One of the people I talked to in my life was my brother and his girlfriend about how they deal with stressors in the relationship. And they said that communicating was just the overall key. That they obviously can't read each other's minds. So when they have an argument or stressors within the relationship, it's important to just sit down and have a rational conversation about it. Also, practicing active listening is really important in a relationship, because for stressors outside the relationship, a lot of people don't. They just want to get like they just want not necessarily advice, but they just want somebody to vent to, um, and just having somebody to listen to you can make things a lot better. Taking responsibility for your actions is also really important. If you're doing something and your partner, it's causing stress for your partner, you might not see it as like a huge problem, but it's obviously bothering them. So you have to take responsibility for that. And that's the same for setting boundaries. Um, if your partner's doing something that's making you uncomfortable or causing stress, you have to let them know because once again, they can't read your mind. Um, Learning to compromise is a good way to solve those problems. Um, in a relationship, it's never going to be perfect. Each person's going to have to change a little bit, and it's hard to do that, but you have to learn to compromise. And of course, if it's needed, you can't go to your partner about stress or they're not helping you, or you as a couple need help dealing with stress. You can seek help, whether it's friends or a therapist or anybody like that. And bad practices in a relationship when dealing with stress is to avoid your partner. It's never going to fix the problem. Um, and if anything, it'll just cause more tension between the two of you. And criticizing or blaming is the same. Um, there's no point in blaming something on the other person. It's not going to solve anything. And also, same with escalating conflicts. Um, there's no point in trying to make the problem worse, whether it's yelling or bringing up other things that aren't important to the problem at hand. It's just going to escalate and make your situation worse. And stonewalling is kind of the same as avoiding your partner, just not trying to add to the solution, just overall making it worse. And for dealing with stress with just by yourself, could be outside the relationship, turning to like harmful practices like alcohol or drugs is never the answer, and it's never going to end up well. That is the end of our presentation.